Okay, so we're continuing with our study of fractions, and today we're going to learn how to divide fractions. It's actually really easy to divide fractions, providing we know how to multiply fractions. So the way we divide fractions is we just turn the second fraction over, and then we multiply. So 2 over 3 times 25 over 23. So when we divide by 23/25, it's the same as multiplying by 25/23. All we've done is turn that one over. And what we get now, if we multiply the tops and multiply the bottoms, we get 50 over 69. And that, in fact, is as simple as it can get. There are no common factors in 50 and 69. Let's have a look at 5 divided by a half. All right? So when we divide by a half, what we're going to do is we are going to times by 2 over 1. Now 5 is also over 1 if we think of it as a fraction. So in fact, when we divide by a half, 5 actually gets multiplied by 2. It gets doubled. We get 10. All right. Now, so there's a little interesting thing here with language. If you divide by a half, that's actually very good news because you are doubling. But if you divide in half, that's not good news. So if someone tells you your salary is going to be divided in half, not good. If it's going to be divided by a half, it's actually going to be doubled. Right, now you know how to divide fractions. We want you to try these 4 at the bottom of the page here. All right, and pause the video, have a go, and then we will go through them shortly. Okay, so this first one, 2/3 divided by 5/6, that's 2/3 times 6/5. All right, it's in fact 12/15. Now notice we are simplifying before we're multiplying and then simplifying. 12/15. 12/15 can simplify because we can divide the top by 3 and the bottom by 3, and we get 4/5. Okay, now be aware that we could have simplified over here. We could have said 3. We could have divided this by 3 and this by 3. We would have got 4/5. We can never divide top and bottom when the fractions are being divided, only when they're being multiplied. So we first got to change it into a multiplication sum. All right, whenever we are dealing with improper fractions, we need to, or mixed numbers, so 3.5, we need to convert that first into an improper fraction. Remember, we're going to multiply 3 by 2, we get 6 plus 1, we get 7 over 2. Right, I haven't done anything yet other than change this number into an improper fraction. Now, a really important idea. You cannot divide these 7s. You cannot start dividing the top and the bottom by 7 all the while there's a divide sign there. We've got to first turn the second one over and make it into multiplication. So this is 2/7 times 2/7, okay? And notice now we can't divide the top and the bottom by 7 because they're both on the bottom. Now we simply multiply the tops and we multiply the bottoms. 7 7s are 49. Okay, the next one has got both numbers as mixed numbers. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make them improper fractions. 13 over 4, 3 times 4 is 12 plus 1, 13 over 4, divided by 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1, 5 over 2. Next up, we are going to change it into a times sign. 13 over 4 times 2 over 5. Okay, and now we can do some simplifying at this point if we wanted to. It actually makes sense to simplify first. We're going to divide the top by 2 and the bottom by 2. So we get a final answer of 13 over 10. 13 divided by 10. We can leave that like that, or we could write it as 1 3/10. Okay. This one here has got some brackets. Remember, we need to do brackets first, our order of operations. So we're going to leave this as exactly like that, and we're just going to work out what's happening inside the brackets here. That's 1/5. Instead of divided by 3/7, I'm going to multiply by 7 over 3. Now, let's do what's in the brackets there. We're going to get 2/3 divided by, and 1/5 times 7/3 is 7/15. Now, we can do this division. How do we divide fractions? We turn the second one over and we change to a times sign. 15/7. Right. We could multiply now, or we could simplify. It really doesn't matter. It's actually slightly easier to simplify first, but let's multiply first. We get 30/21. 30/21 is not in its simplest form because both of those numbers are multiples of 3. If we divide the top by 3, we get 10. If we divide the bottom by 3, we get 7. And there's our final answer. Okay, right. So dividing fractions, not too bad at all. These look a little ugly, all right? But remember that this means divide. This line here means divide. I'm just going to make this pen a little bit narrower so I can just highlight that division sign there. So we could just as easily write this question as 3/7 divided by 2/5. And now it probably looks less scary than it looked before. Because what do we do when we divide fractions? That's right. We turn the second one over and we change it to a times sign. So we're going to get 15/14. Final answer. Okay, we're going to ask you to pause the video again. We're going to ask you to try the other questions on this page. Just be careful here. Understand that this divide sign is also like a bracket. So in other words, we need to work out the numerator and the denominator and then take the results and divide the one by the other. So pause the video, try these. Just remember BODMAS, okay? And remember, we don't do anything before we've got improper fractions. So if we've got mixed numbers like we have in I, right, then go with improper fractions first. Okay, try all these questions and then let the video run again and see how you did. Good luck. Remember, you can talk to your friend, discuss it with the person next to you. The best way to learn is to help one another. Okay, so let's take a look at this first one. What we've got here, on the top, we've got to add these two fractions. All right, so a half plus a third. They're not the same type of fractions, so we're going to make them both into a common denominator, and a common denominator would be sixths. So we're going to make them both into sixths. A half, what have we done to the bottom of that fraction to make it 6? We've multiplied by 3, so we must multiply the top by 3. This fraction here, 1/2, is exactly the same as 3/6. This fraction here, 1/3, is the same as how many sixths? What have we multiplied by? We've multiplied the bottom by 2. We must multiply the top, the 1, by 2. All right, that top of that fraction is exactly the same as it was before in terms of its value. The only thing is, all right, the only thing is that they're of the same type now, ready for us to add them. We haven't added them yet, but we've got them ready. The bottom of this fraction is 1/6 plus a third. We want to add those, right? They're not the same fraction types. So let's see what we could do to both of them. We could make, that one's already 6th. Let's leave that as a 6th. And let's change a third into sixths. Right, we've already done that on the top, actually. But to get a third to sixths, we're multiplying the bottom by 2. We must multiply the top by 2. Right, this green stuff is exactly the same value as that other green stuff. And that is why we can say equals. These fractions are equal. Now, the top one is 5/6. When you add 3/6 and 2/6, you get 5/6. The bottom one is 3/6. Okay, now we've got a fraction divided by a fraction. It's going to be much easier to do this if we write it like this. 5/6 divided by 3/6. How do we divide fractions? Oh, we know that. We turn the second one over and we change the sign to a times. So that 3/6 becomes 6/3. Right, now, this is a classic case where it's much easier to simplify and then multiply than the other way around. We could get 30/18, but it's easier if we divide the top and the bottom by 6 and we're just left with 5/3. 30 over 18 is the same as 5 over 3, but we want it in simplest form. Okay, let's look at the next one. The next one's fairly straightforward, but don't forget BODMAS. Must we add or divide first? Halal. We must divide first. So 2/3 plus. Now we want to take 3/5 and we want to divide it by 6/5. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to change that divide to a times, and we're going to turn our 6/5 over to become 5/6. Right. The easiest thing to do here is to simplify. Let's divide the bottom by 5 and the top by 5. So now what we've got 2/3 and we've got 3/6. We want to add these two fractions. They're not the same type. We need a common denominator. What denominator could we use for both of them? We could use 6 for both of them. These ones are ready to go. They're ready in 6. What must I do to the denominator of this one to take it from 3 to 6? Remembering that we can only multiply or divide. Yeah, I've multiplied by 2. So what must I do to the top to keep it the same? I must also multiply by 2. And my final answer, I've now got the same type of fractions, and I can add them and I get 7/6. Does it make sense? It always makes sense. Isibalo ziqaqeke injalo. All right, let's look at H. H has got some brackets, so we've got to do the stuff in the brackets first. Okay, we want to add 2/3 and a 1/5. Now in Sinkinga, they're different things. These are thirds, these are fifths. What do thirds and fifths, what do 3 and 5 both go into? What's a common multiple? Yeah, in fact, 15 is a common multiple. So is 30, so is 60. 15 is what we call the lowest common multiple. What have we done to the bottom of this fraction to get it to 15? We've times by 5, we must times the top by 5. 10/15 is exactly the same as 2/3. What have we done to the bottom of this one to get it to 15? We've times by 3, we must times the top by 3. Okay, now we can add those two fractions. So we've got 3 minus 13/15. Okay, now we've got two numbers here. I'm going to make this one into a fraction. What denominator could I use? What could I make them both? I could make them both 15ths. Now, if I make this 15ths, I've multiplied the bottom by 15. I must multiply the top by 15. 3 lots of 15 is 45/15. 45/15 is exactly the same as 3 over 1. It's exactly the same as 3. 45/15 minus 13/15. Halala, we've got the same denominator. 45 minus 13 is 32. 32/15. And there's our final answer. Okay. All right. The next one. Quite messy. There's a lot going on here. The first thing we must do is we must change these mixed numbers into improper fractions. 3 and a third, multiply that by the denominator and add the numerator. 10 over 3. Minus 5 over 2 divided by 2 over 5. Okay, now we need to do this division first. So in fact, we're going to change that. Divide. How do we divide fractions? We tip and times. We're going to change this to a times, and that 2/5 is going to become 5 over 2. Okay, now we've got 10/3, and we want to subtract 25 over 4. Notice we've multiplied the tops and we've multiplied the bottoms. That's how we multiply fractions. Now, we've got a problem because we want to subtract these fractions and they're not of the same type. What do 3 and 4 both go into? They both go into 12, right? So if I want to make this into 12ths and this into 12ths, to get this into 12ths, I must multiply by 4, so I must multiply the top by 4. 40/12. To get this into 12ths, I must multiply by 3. And if I multiply the bottom by 3, I must multiply the top by 3. So I end up with 40 minus 75. Both of them are 12ths. So 40 minus 75 minus 35 over 12. And that's our final answer. Okay, the next one, J. Well, we need to work out what's happening in the brackets first. So we've got 2/3 plus a fifth. We want to add those things. They're not the same type. What do 3 and 5 both go into? They both go into 15. What have I multiplied 3 by to get to 15? By 5. Let's multiply 2 by 5. 10 over 15 is exactly the same as 2 over 3. Just going to show you that on a... Okay, just to show you that. 10 over 15, and your calculator does it for you. That's not 10, that's 19. 10 over 15 is the same as 2 over 3. Right, I've taken it to 10 over 15 because I want to be able to add it to this one. 1 over 5 is the same as what over 15? What have I multiplied the bottom by? By 3. We need to multiply the 1 by 3. These are now the same type of thing. And what we get is we get 1 divided by, let's add these. Remember, when we've got the same types, we just add the numerators. We've got 13/15. The last thing we're going to do is do this division by turning that into a times. This will be 15 over 13. Right, the 1 is actually 1 over 1. Final answer, 1 times 15 over 1 times 13. Okay, the next ones, and if you haven't tried them yet, pause the video again and try them. Right, but the last two we're going to look at, this one. Now this one's quite strange because there's kind of 3 fractions here. What we've got 5/6 divided by 7. Okay, let's write it differently. Let's write it as 5/6 divided by 7. But let's write that 7 as a fraction. 7 over 1. How do we divide fractions? Easy. What do? We change it to times and we turn this one over. 7 over 1 becomes 1 over 7. Final answer, 5 times 1, 5. 6 times 7, 42. We hope you know how to do that without a calculator. Okay, there it is. The last one that we're going to do today, we first need to make it into an improper fraction. Okay, so 3.5, we multiply the 3 by 2 and we add 1, we get 7 over 2. 7 over 2 is exactly the same as 3.5. Now we're going to divide that by 2/3. How do we divide fractions? We tip the second one over and we change to a multiply. 7 over 2 times 3 over 2. 21 over 4. Okay, so now we hope that you're becoming more comfortable with fractions. We hope that you know how to add them, subtract them, multiply them, and divide them. Fractions can be your very, very best friends. Okay, have a great day, and we look forward to seeing you next time.